Okay, I thought I would do a. I got a flash of inspiration for my video game ideas. For one particular video game that I want to have made eventually. I would make it myself, but I'm no good at coding. I can't read code. However, I came up with some extra mechanics and story or character concepts. Um, First off, I want to have a city called Swing Downtown, um, where some catters and lizardin, not lizard men, but lizardin, and catters are having uh, let's call it a gang war of sorts, or a blood feud, kind of like the noble houses of Romeo and Juliet, or some kind of combination. So I've already probably mentioned Kittler, Ernest Romcat, and Rick Fuegos. And I thought I would mention that Rick Fuegos is on a mummy hunt where he's going into the infirmary of the local church and casting firebolt at people bandaged up. And then there's another character. I think I've tried to mention him already, but I think I've added to it. So I think I said Hummel. And what I decided is I would call him Hummel, or the Zero. And there will be a situation where this artist troupe is, when they talk to the character, they're trying to convince them that um, a group of um, catter babies being fed by lizardin um, meat, I guess, is well. Let's put it this way: I would probably make a I would probably make him say something like the muse are demons, and they're looking to make matzo balls from us. Um, or they're trying to make balls out of our Masta race or something. That's a little on the nose in a sense, but whatever. There would be like a neutral sort of storyline for it, and there would be taking one side or the other, basically. And the purpose of it is to get the moral choice is to kill both groups, basically. So there's Karl Marker. I mentioned him versus Karl the Marker versus Karl the Young. The Young. And the Catter gang would be fairly cohesive, and so on. But the Lizardin conspiracy will be more scattered in the town and individualistic and so on. Like they wouldn't be, you might find out eventually or something that the Lizardin people are know each other and work and so on. Whereas the Catters would be in a bit of a group, basically, or something. Um, Now, in the Lizardin group, I would put um, Ron Hubble into it, and he would be talking about the time he accidentally cast firebolt on a hot water bathing um, a boiler basically for hot water way too many times, and someone took a shower or a bath and boiled to death, and how he accidentally convinced people to give him money for a I haven't thought of this far. Let's see what I can come up with on the spot. Um, and the time he accidentally, let's say, mistook Hummler's mummy, or Rick Flagos's, sorry, mummy hunts as a positive thing, and ate a baby, let's say. And maybe I would leave it there on him. And then I would have Magnanimous Hertzfield, who tells who writes about how the Catter's only redeeming quality, let's say, is that they're all men or males, and has a group of 9 followers who are fairly weak, of Lizardin and Catters, and they all beat up random people after picking fights with other random people. So there's 2 people. They pick a fight with someone and tell them be there or we'll get you. And then they if the person doesn't show up, they pick a fight and beat up someone else as a gang and so on. And tell them it's for their let's say, and that's one of the things they do. And the other thing that Magnanimous Hertzfield does is he writes poetry about how women are men, and let's say the evils of men and women who have children. And then there would be Ron Yuan. And yuan is a form of currency in China. It's money. So that would be the John Money stand-in. And he would talk about how he helped two brothers find love with each other, but alas, he could not stop them from despairing to death of the Lizardins. And it would be kind of like a Humbert kind of a. I don't want to actually read Lolita, but if I was to get this game thing seriously going, I might actually read it to understand Humbert. Uh, and slip in maybe a few references to Lolita, or like some sort of similar excuses for behavior kind of language in Ron Yuan, because it's a stand-in for John Money. And he would also write about, he would be proselytizing about becoming divine by, or no, he would proselytize that one's genitals make you impure. So he would be like and this is the Lizardins faction basically. And then there would be Graham Science, the poison peddler. And he would somewhat deal with the day-to-day operations of this entire Lizardin gang and so on. And its attempts to take over Swing downtown. And Karl the Marker, or Karl of the Marks, or Karl the Marker, he would be a university professor or a school professor along with Karl the Younger, and or Karl the Young, and they would be having arguments, and Karl the Marker would be writing a book called The Metaphysics of Envy, sort of a nod to communism as a religion of envy and so on. And that would be kind of what they would be doing. So then you have your Nazis and communists represented and so on. In Swing downtown. And the mayor would be Akiad the Soy, dealing with these gangs. And they would be a priest, and they would be, he would have a bodyguard. He would be a priest, but he would have a bodyguard of a bit of a weapons master, I think is the class I came up with. I can't remember exactly. Called Gatz von Berlin. And Gatz von Berlin would be, he would have a unique sword called Dragon's Lair. So he puts dragons to sleep. And he would have a crossbow. And he would also have a scroll of fireball, which I would code him to shoot always on the first turn that he has and then that's it. It's done. And there would be Gats von Berlin. And that's a reference to Guts, and it's also a reference to the original guy, Gotts von Berlinken or something. And the Lizardin would be primarily amongst the peasantry, and the Catters would be primarily amongst the aristocracy. Or not even the aristocracy. Actually, no, they would be the aristocracy. And then you would have the actual townsfolk living between the peasants and the aristocracy, who are mixed classes and so on, with these troublemakers on the opposite sides of town and in those other areas, respectively. And the townsfolk would, the peasants would be rather delusional about the aristocracy, and the aristocracy would be rather delusional about the peasants. And they'd all be human. The peasants, the aristocracy, and the townsfolk generally, except the Catter gang and the Lizardin gang, would be human. So I guess I've just designed my first and then maybe I would put a priest into the town of Gael Gaffin, or Graf von Gael, who's a stand-in for Clemens Graf von Galen. And I would put a sage or a mage shop or something like that, or a mage school kind of headmaster named Soso Frosty. And if you know Susu no Frieren, then that's what that comes from. It's Frieren herself, basically. And maybe an elf mage, female elf mage, and so on. And what I might do is, if I were to do it in the way that I want to, then you could either pick the Catters or the Lizardin as the head gang of town, or you could kill both of them separately, or you could pick a fight with both of them at the same time, but you'd have rallied the townsfolk to kill both of these gangs as the townsfolk, with your party on their side too. Or you could kill the townspeople in charge, and so on. And it would be Carl the Young, that is the guy you would go to trigger the two parties versus two parties kind of fight. Um, oh, and I guess Humbler the Zero would also have a bit of a rant about using the magic of the Din of Woe or something. So he'd be like a bard or something like that, like a warlock bard multi-class, because there's like a combat mechanics and class mechanics kind of thing that I would put into the characters as well as the player characters too, as a possibility, and so on. So yeah, that would be kind of how I'd do it. As for the mechanics part, the mechanics would be the extra mechanics that I have would be for Swashbuckler and Defender at the same time. I would have parries cause I would have it so that parries and attacks on a different character that's beside the enemy triggers. So you have two characters of your party or something, and you have one enemy or something, or you have three enemies in a row or something like that. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. You could have two characters of yours beside, where one's between three enemies and one's to the right or left or up and down, so that they're only facing two enemies. Or you can have it so that one character's in the middle of three enemies in a line, and the other character's on the other side of the three enemies. But basically, I would have about 5 ranks in opportunist, I guess I might call it, or I'm not sure. Because I got another mechanic that's. I got 2 mechanics that are, or 3 mechanics on top of it, and one of them's kind of similar in a way. It's sort of similar, where the Swashbuckler and the Defender class would have talents, opportunities, where parry would always, or almost always, cause a riposte, which means you deflect with your blade and then you strike them with the opening you made by deflecting with the blade a certain way. So, if you got a blade right in the middle of your body and someone swings from the left or right, you smash it back the way it came, and then you strike the enemy because you got your sword right in front of them, and so on. Um, um, I would also have disengage for the Defender, and I can't remember what the rogue is. That's more. It's not an assassin, but it's kind of. I think it might be called a rogue, actually, or like a thief or something. Disengage, where they would trade the default walk away, lose 2 action points, and get hit for 4 action points and get hit for just losing 4 action points, and then they knock it down to 2 action points, and then knock it down to 0 action points. And I would add one more thing to the Defender, which is challenging aura or something. And basically, the first rank would force the people right beside to attack them 90% of the time or something. And then it would make it so that the people in the second square away for the next rank would be like 70% likely. And then the third rank would be like 3 squares away for like 50%. And then 4 squares away for 30%, and then 5 squares away for 20%. So it's basically like the closer you are to them, the more likely you are to attack them or something. It wouldn't stack; it would just be overriding the closer you get to them, and so on. So that would make the defender really good for things, and so on. And the weapon master would have a potential for cleaving and double attack and so on, and triple attack or something. So he'd be like a real powerhouse on single target damage in some sense, as a proc, not reliable and so on. The other thing I would do is I would give the assassin and maybe the thief as well the ability, and I might make it so that the thief only gets 3 ranks of this and the assassin gets 5 ranks. But I would make it so that the first rank of this ability, which is similar to Opportunist in a sense, is if you're in the 3 squares on the opposite side of the target that the enemy attacked. So if you're like behind to the left, behind to the right, or just straight behind, then you might get like 15% extra damage on your attack, or all attacks until they attack something that's not facing you. And like 10% if you're to their side. It's pure left, pure right from their last attack. So that would be like a... And I might nerf the swashbuckler and defender opportunist attack thing by making it so you have to be beside both the enemy and the target of attack or something. So, like, to represent them actually seeing the weapon swing, and then like hidden in between because of their weapons out of place for them to defend or something. And a shield would negate that, or like you would negate. Actually, no. Never mind the shield thing. But otherwise, it would stay the same as I just described. And the second rank would be like 25 to 20, or 25 to 15. And then the next rank would be like 35 or 45, 50 to 35. And the next rank of damage will be 65 to 50. And then 80 to 65 for behind them attacks and beside them attacks. So positioning based on class would actually matter somewhat. So you could actually sort of like surround someone, and like if you surround them correctly, then you get the perfect setup for huge damage basically all the time and so on. With all the classes and stuff. And you'd have like 6 different characters you can pick. So you can play around with the class composition and their mechanics and so on. And you don't have to pick these talents. These would just be like part of the options and so on. But, they would be unique, relatively unique and so on. The the assassin class would have um, poisons, and it wouldn't work on undead um, until you rank it up a little bit, or like it wouldn't. It would be based on damage done, basically. Like poison would do like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25% of your damage. Because the thing is, assassins will use daggers, which are relatively low base damage. So when you're adding ones and 1% to the damage, then it's like it's kind of going up, but it's not really. We're talking like 1 to 4, 1 to 6 damage instead of like 5 to 30 with a halberd or something. And enchanted daggers would make it go up, and it would be based on the actual damage, not the weapon base damage. The poison percent of damage. And this would go on for like 3 turns or something like that. Um, and like that's one of the reasons why positioning with the assassin is so important, basically, because the damage of daggers is so low baseline. But the poison would add it to it too, so like stack. And the poison would have like 3 to 4 or 5 turns. Maybe I'd put ranks in poisoning, master poison or something. 3 to 5 talents of it. And it would do like, you'd start with like 10% damage over 3 turns or something, and then go to like 20% over 2 turns, and then like 30% over 3 turns or something, or like 30% per turn for 1 extra turn for 3 ranks of it. So it'd be like 10% 1 turn baseline or first point. 20% for 20% each turn for 2 turns, 30% for each turn for 3 turns, and it might also go from affecting living creatures only to affecting undead to affecting divine beings as well. And so that would be like a thing. And the poison would actually stack. So basically, on the first turn, you do 30% poison damage, then you do 60% on hit, and then you do 90% on hit, and then it goes back down to 60, then back down to 30, then it's over. If you hit 3 times in a row, or something like that. And this makes haste actually pretty potent and so on. So this would be your bleeder class, basically. I might make a the priest class or cleric class, or saint, or healer class. I might give them a talent that 2 points talent that group heal damages undead by 25% of the heal, or 50% of the heal. Um, so that undead have a counter as well from the cleric or whatever, or the healer or the saint or whatever it's called. I can't remember. And also, divine beings receive 30% of the healing as damage from group heal within a 25 square radius, basically, or like maybe 25 is too much. Five square radius or something, or 6 square radius or something. Yeah, yeah. So those are my character concepts and my story for a town. And these are my class mechanics ideas to add to the complexity of the game, gameplay wise. And I might add also firearms and bombs. But those will be wisdom based or something like that. Or they would be hybrid optimization for like I might have firearms as sort of a strength requirement, hard strength requirement for and so on for guns, or like some sort of strength boost to represent loading it with more powder for the kickback. Actually, no, I don't think I'll add firearms and bombs. Scrolls will do, because there's scaling for that. I'll keep it simple. Well, I'll keep it elegant, not simple. Yeah. Okay, that's all I got. Thanks for watching.